It is totally their responsibility. And if they had taken care of the business earlier, we wouldn't be in this situation right now.
In a world where sports and media intersect, where athletes become more than just players, they become brands and sometimes even heroes. This story isn't just about basketball, it's about standing up for what's right, about having a voice that shakes the very foundations of a sports culture that's often ruled by double standards. Meet Sophie. She wasn't the one on the court, but she made one bold move that set the sports world on fire and catapulted her to stardom. Sophie became a rock star, not for her slam dunks, but for her unwavering defense of Caitlin Clark. And in doing so, she didn't just win the hearts of fans, she made millions. How did it all happen? Let's dive into this incredible story. It all began during one of the most intense games of the season, a championship game, a moment of pure competition where every second on the court mattered. In the midst of all the action, two players dominated the headlines. One was Caitlin Clark, the sharpshooting sensation whose name had already become synonymous with brilliance in women's basketball. The other, a fierce competitor who wasn't quite getting the recognition she deserved. During the game, Caitlin Clark found herself under fire for something that seemed too trivial to matter. She was accused of disrespectful behavior on the court, something that many felt was blown way out of proportion. In fact, Caitlin's fiery attitude, her competitive edge, was nothing more than the passion that any athlete would display. But not everyone saw it that way. This is where Sophie enters the picture. Sophie wasn't an athlete, but she had been a close follower of the game for years. As a former sports journalist turned media mogul, Sophie had developed a strong voice in the sports world. And when she saw what was happening to Caitlin Clark, she wasn't about to stay silent. What Sophie saw was a clear case of double standards in the media. She realized that the way Caitlin was being treated for her competitive spirit was a reflection of how women athletes are often held to a different, unfair standard compared to their male counterparts. Sophie's heart went out to Caitlin, and she couldn't stand by and watch this narrative continue. She knew something had to be done. Sophie took to social media, her platform brimming with followers and fans who trusted her opinion. She wasn't afraid to speak out. Her voice rang out loud and clear as she posted a fiery message defending Caitlin Clark. In her post, Sophie didn't just stand up for Caitlin's actions, she called out the media for the hypocrisy of how they treated women in sports, for constantly undermining their achievements, and for allowing such negative narratives to thrive. Sophie was on fire, and her followers quickly rallied behind her. But Sophie's post didn't just stop at an outcry. It sparked a movement. Fans, sports enthusiasts, even some major sports personalities began sharing Sophie's post, and soon enough, it became a national conversation. The hashtag #Defend Caitlin Clark started trending worldwide. Sophie's name, once known only in certain media circles, quickly became a household name. She was trending alongside Caitlin Clark, and in many ways, her defense of Caitlin became as iconic as Caitlin's performance on the court. As the days went on, Sophie's social media presence exploded. She went from a respected sports figure to an undeniable powerhouse of influence. Her phone didn't stop ringing. Endorsements, brand deals, even offers to appear on major talk shows. Brands saw Sophie as the kind of person they wanted to align with, someone who wasn't afraid to speak the truth, someone who could start a movement and ignite the passions of others. It wasn't long before Sophie became a face of empowerment in the sports world, particularly for women's sports. Her message resonated with millions, but let's talk about the numbers, the millions she made. Sophie's voice turned into dollars in a way she never could have imagined. Major brands in fashion, fitness, and even sports companies offered her lucrative endorsement deals. Her social media following soared to new heights, bringing with it a wave of monetization opportunities. What started as a simple post defending an athlete turned into a full-fledged brand. Sophie became the voice of a new wave in sports, one that celebrated strong women, stood up for equality, and fought against the status quo. Her newfound fame didn't just bring financial success, it brought power. Sophie was now a voice that mattered. She was a media mogul who was changing the game one post at a time. With every tweet, every Instagram story, every TikTok video, Sophie reinforced her brand as someone who wasn't afraid to speak up, someone who would always champion fairness in sports, especially for women. And let's not forget about the impact she had on Caitlin Clark herself. Caitlin, who had been under fire from the media for so long, found herself gaining the support of fans and fellow athletes alike. All thanks to Sophie's timely and unwavering defense. Caitlin's legacy was no longer being defined by an overblown incident on the court. It was being shaped by the people who rallied around her, and Sophie was one of the strongest voices in that chorus. Sophie's defense didn't just defend Caitlin's actions, it amplified her voice and her cause. But Sophie didn't stop there. Her rise to stardom wasn't just about money, it was about making a lasting impact. Sophie used her platform to speak out on issues beyond the basketball court. She championed causes like equality in sports, mental health for athletes, and the importance of building a fair, supportive environment for women in competitive spaces. She became an advocate for athletes who were often overlooked or dismissed, using her voice to spotlight the struggles of those who needed it the most. Her influence also extended to the business world. Brands in the sports industry looking to tap into the rapidly growing market for women's sports turned to Sophie for guidance. She became a consultant for companies looking to create campaigns that not only celebrated athletes like Caitlin Clark, but also showcased women's sports in a more positive, empowering light. Sophie knew that her platform wasn't just a vehicle for personal gain, it was a tool for change. And the change didn't stop at sports. Sophie's advocacy extended beyond the court, influencing policy discussions on women's sports and contributing to shifts in the way sports media treated female athletes. Major media outlets began to rethink their approach, considering the voices of female athletes and the impact of their coverage. But let's talk about the most surprising aspect of Sophie's journey, how she became a true media mogul. Sophie's defense of Caitlin Clark didn't just make her millions, it helped her build an empire. She started her own media company focused on creating content that celebrated women in sports, empowering female athletes, and sharing stories that often went untold. Her company produced documentaries, sponsored content, and even her own podcast where she interviewed athletes and thought leaders discussing everything from social justice in sports to the challenges of being a woman in a male-dominated world. As Sophie's influence grew, so did her business. She made partnerships with major corporations, invested in emerging tech startups, and became a sought-after speaker for conferences and events. Her story, the one that started with a single post defending Caitlin Clark, had transformed her into a leader in the sports world, a thought leader in the media, and an undeniable force in the fight for equality in sports. The journey of Sophie is a reminder of the power of standing up for what's right. What started as a defense of one athlete, one moment in time, became a massive movement. Sophie wasn't just advocating for Caitlin Clark, she was advocating for all women athletes who were constantly underrepresented, undervalued, and undermined. And in doing so, she made millions. But more importantly, she made a difference. Sophie's story is a testament to the power of speaking your truth, of using your voice when it matters, and of how one person can change the game. And that, in itself, makes her a true rock star.